Hey, everybody. Uh, Appreciate you chiming in if you are watching this live. This segment of our live is realigning your millennial identity, the first step to rebuilding your career. Okay, so who this is for is for professionals out there who are feeling stuck, for millennials out there who just are not satisfied and are not fulfilled with their careers right now, and figuring out what that next step is, right? How to get realigned. Okay. And that's what I will be talking about today. So, if you are a millennial, I would love it. Drop it in the chat. Let me know. Um, and without further ado, let me get this going here. Got you. Okay. So, first thing I wanted to talk to you about is your identity quietly shapes your career, even when you don't realize it. So, studies have shown that 85% of career satisfaction is tied specifically to your internal self perception, okay, not external achievement. Okay, so let me give you a quick example of that. You might have seen where like two people might hold the same job, okay, same job, same title. I'm just going to say same salary, okay. One is fulfilled and one is not. Why is that? Okay, so from a millennial perspective, I want to take you down not necessarily a rabbit hole, but I want you to consider this. From a millennial standpoint, we were given guidance, right, when we were younger, and we were told, hey, go to school, do good in school, go to college, get a good career, buy the house, raise a family, American dream, right? That's what you were given, okay? Now, we faced something a little bit that our prior generations didn't really face, and that's social media. Okay. So in 2004, right, when social media came out, or I would say Facebook, right? Facebook came out in 2004. Okay. I want you to consider this the time that you are supposed to be self identifying your personality, your way of thinking, your strengths, your weaknesses, right? Is the time that social media dropped for most millennials. Okay. And what that means is that instead of you doing the inner work on yourself and truly figuring out what makes John, right? We were self validating on social media, right? We were craving that external validation from somebody else. Okay. With posts, with pictures, right? With ways of thinking and things like that, right? So it went from us trying to figure ourselves out to, well, let me type in what others want to hear. Let me put this video of me to gain that little confidence booster that I am pretty, or that this outfit looks good, or whatever it may be. Okay. That's where we were at. So for my example, for right in, I believe it's 2004, Facebook came out, 2005, YouTube came out. Okay. 2010, Instagram came out. And I think the most recent was 2016, which was TikTok. Okay. So in that example, right, in that instance, in 2004, I was 19 years old. Okay. In 2004, I was 19 years old. Okay. Facebook came out, but here's the kicker: we didn't have smartphones really back then. I was still rocking a razor at that time. Okay. So at that time when it came out, it wasn't easily as accessible as it is now, right? I think you still had to pretty much have a computer at home or somewhere to access Facebook and YouTube and things like that. Okay, so um, I know with my razor and that little small screen, you couldn't see anything anyway. But in 2005, right, when YouTube came out, this is the time I was 20 years old. At that time, I had enlisted in the military. Okay, so I was shipped off to basic training. So obviously, we didn't have Facebook or YouTube in basic training. Okay, and when I turned 21 in 2006, I went to my first duty station. I deployed by 2007. Okay, so I was already gone. I didn't get back until almost 2009 because I was gone for 15 months. Okay, 2010, Instagram comes out. Okay. even when Instagram came out, like I remember getting back from Iraq, because even when I was in Iraq, we had a little recreation center, and I remember setting up. I literally remember this, setting up my MySpace page, okay, in Iraq, and I remember it was horrible. Okay, we didn't have the best internet, so you can imagine how slow it was, and most of the time, I just honestly gave up. I didn't even let the page load. I would just move on with my day. Okay. So then when I got back and there was like, oh, look, there's these phones and everything that you can get now, right? There's smartphones and stuff like that. I was like, wow. And then how easily accessible everything was. Like, oh, look, it's Facebook. Oh, yeah, there's this and YouTube and stuff like that. So it was fairly new to me even in 2009. Like social media was fairly new to me in 2009 when I was back. But then in 2010, I ended up leaving again. Okay, that's when we deployed. Ended up going to Afghanistan. So then I was gone until like 2011, early 2012, when I finally got back. Then when I got back, it was even more like hyped up. I remember like thinking like, "Oh wow, I'm getting this new phone. Wow, it has everything on here. I can download Facebook, I can download Instagram, I can download YouTube." So that's when I started coming across it. But by that time already, what? How old was I? 2003, 18. So by that time, I was already in the mid 20s. Okay. So I got to live a life that I got to self reflect a lot. Okay. I got to kind of stay away from social media, and I got to just really hone in on who I was, right? Even though I had little pieces, right? Especially those times where you came back from deployment, I had those little pieces of time where I was embedded in social media, right? And throughout that time, if you are feeling like you're stuck, I would ask you, how embedded were you in social media during your development years, during your time where you're supposed to be finding yourself, right? I think most millennials were in that age range, right? Whether you were either in the older kind of like teen to, teen stage around there, or even if you were younger, especially if you were younger during that time, you pretty much got into your teens to your young adulthood when social media was pretty much on fire. Okay. So I would ask you, and I would prompt you, right, to really think about, during my development stage, how embedded was I in social media, right? Was I craving that external validation before I knew who I was, before I knew my own identity? Okay. Because if you are in a position right now where you feel stuck and you feel misaligned, perhaps you feel, your life just isn't where it is, right? It can lead to self-sabotage, and this is something that you might be doing right now. Okay. And that can come in a form of, you're showing up late to work, right? You're not taking on like extra assignments. You're not taking on extra projects. You're procrastinating a lot. You're just playing it small and trying to keep yourself just out of, in the army we used to say, keep yourself away from the flagpole, right? Don't want to be where the general and all that stuff is. So you're playing it small. You're kind of staying in the cut, right? You might even be cynical towards the job that you have right now. You just go in and pretty much talk crap about everybody that works there, about the job itself, but yet you keep showing up every day, right? And it pretty much gets you in that loop of just having a certain thought process of, well, this is the way it is, right? Because you don't necessarily know what's going on, but you just know that you don't like being there, right? And without reflection, right, without pausing for a little bit, how would you know if you're still aligned or not? How would you know what's truly going on? Okay. And I will tell you, the first step to this, okay, the first step to this is to realignment is awareness. Okay. You have to be aware. Let me paint you, or let me provide you with an example. Okay. If you're a millennial, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about right now. So I want you to go back. Go back in the day, right? Before smartphones, before GPS, before any of that, right? Say you were, say you just had your, well, my hand Danny razor, right? If I had my razor and I was calling a friend and I was like, "Hey man, I'm on my way to that party." Oh, sorry. I'm on my way to that party, right? But I'm lost. You know, I need directions. More than likely, my friend's going to ask me, "Okay, where are you?" And if I'm like, "I don't know," how is he going to provide direction? Okay, that's the same concept here. All right. If you don't know where you currently stand, how are you going to get direction or know where you're trying to go, what that next step is for you? Okay. A simple way, simple, not easy. Okay. A simple way of doing this is just sit with yourself and reflect. Ask yourself, who am I becoming? Okay. And I don't mean like just put your headphones on and go off and everything. I mean like truly sit with yourself. If you have a room that you can seclude yourself in at your house, apartment, whatever it may be, you got to go to the park and just seclude yourself where nobody's around, no distractions or anything, and just sit with yourself and just truly ask yourself, who am I becoming? And do your darnest, right, to answer that question, because chances are you're going to have to go back to answer that question. You are going to have to go back to see how you've grown. You're going to have to go back maybe a year or two, maybe 5 years. You might have to go back to that stage where you were supposed to be or should have been finding yourself, but instead you were immersed in social media, right? Did you start changing then? Did you start adhering to, well, this is the PR version of me, what I'm supposed to say, what I'm supposed to do, things like that? You know what? I just noticed there's a weird thing on my camera. Okay. Sorry. Um, but if you truly just sit down and answer that question, right, it's going to take you a little bit. Like I said, it's a simple but not easy thing to do. Okay. Ask yourself, who am I becoming? And answer that question to your best of your ability, right? Then ask yourself, what parts of my identity feel outdated or limited, right? What part of me is craving more, right? Is it the, inner child in you, right? Is it that teenager, that young adult that still had to develop a little bit more in a certain aspect of your life? Okay. Which parts do you feel that just no longer serve you? Okay. Because when you start doing that, and when you start thinking like this and truly reflecting, right? Say you do this, and I'm not saying you're going to answer this in one time. Definitely not going to be able to sit down in one instance and just answer these questions raw and honest. Okay. It's going to probably take you a couple times to do this. But when you start sitting down, and even if it's for a 30-minute session, just to think about these questions and think about some answers, what you're starting to do is you're starting to rewire your brain. Okay. What that'll do, it, intentional reflection rewires the patterns of thought in your brain. Okay. So instead of you thinking, I don't want to go in and deal with my boss today. Um, oh, it's just case of the Mondays, right? Instead of you thinking that, you're going to start identifying where you lack, right? Where you want more growth. And it'll lead you to another step, which can rewire the patterns of thought in your head to the point where that, oh, it's a case of the Mondays to, I get to start the week strong, right? Start strong on Monday, developing the new me, right? I don't want to deal with my boss today. Can go to, let me have a quick conversation with my boss on the next steps in this career, on the next steps in my job here, or on what he or she may see is next for me, right? You can start having different conversations in your head and different conversations with your environment. Okay. It's changing that pattern of thought in you to the point where you're getting away from that cynical, that procrastinating, that playing it small person, and you're building your new identity with it. Okay. So is it easy? No, it is not. Okay. Chances are you might be listening to this right now and you might be like, man, John, that sounds great. That sounds great. I wish I could just like snap my finger and I have the confidence to do it, right? Or that I have the clarity, exactly know what that next step is for me, right? And believe me, it's not. It's not that simple, right? But it's worth it, guys, if you put in the work, because to rebuild your next chapter with confidence, clarity, and purpose, all right, you have to take intentional action. Okay. Let me hit you with this. Millennials are the most purpose driven workforce, yet we are the highest, or reporting the highest career dissatisfaction. Okay. And like I said before, we were sold a dream, right? That didn't materialize. And we still don't psychologically know ourselves, okay, our true selves. And we had an enemy to deal with, which was social media during our development stage. Okay. Not only that, I want you to consider this. Right now, there's certain like adult milestones that you should hit in your life, right? You get a couple jobs in, career, right? Now you get the career that you're like, man, this is my job. This is what I do. I'm here 30, 40 years. That was your parents. Okay. That was your parents. I identifying success for you. Okay. I want you to consider this. We have dealt with 2008, a global financial crisis. Okay. And then 2000 or 2020, right? A global pandemic. Okay. I don't know how that affected you. All right. I don't know how much pain you went through on that. Okay. I know we felt it a little bit, right? For me, especially the pandemic, 2008. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I didn't even notice it because we were preparing for deployment and we were gone. Okay. So I didn't really notice 2008 global pandemic until we got back. Okay. For 2020, obviously, COVID, everybody kind of felt that one, right? Here's the weird part about it, where for a millennial, that should have been around the times where like 2008, you're probably in either preteen to young adult 20s to like your young 30s, right? Somewhere around there. So, what's kind of expected of you, or the expectation that your parents probably had of you, society, and what you've been told you should be doing at that time, right? Perhaps almost getting married, perhaps almost buying a house or already have a house, right? Maybe you got your first kid on the way, kind of thing like that. But instead, you hit a global financial crisis and perhaps you lose your job, perhaps you go on unemployment, everything just kind of unravels and falls apart. Okay. And you might find yourself that you started from scratch again, right? As a millennial. Now, you fast forward, you pick up the pieces, right? Because one thing's for sure is we learned how to play on the playgrounds when we were younger. Okay. We climbed jungle gyms, guys. We slid down that metal slide that burned you all the way down. Okay. We learned resilience and grit. Okay. So you picked up the pieces after 2008 and 2009. Okay. You picked up the pieces. You got back on your feet. You started going again. And maybe you started going again great, right? You got back up, new job, whatever it may be. You picked up some, the savings that you might have lost or anything like that. Okay. Now 2020 comes along, right? Global pandemic, right? Everything's shut down. Fear is pumped into this world. Okay. And in 2020, probably found yourself around, anywhere between your mid 20s to your mid 30s, right? Or maybe early 20s to your mid 30s, right? Global pandemic hits. And now it's like, well, perhaps you lost some friends, right? As a millennial, perhaps you lost some friends, 30, maybe upper 30s, right? Maybe even in the 20s. Okay. You lost some friends and now you're starting to question, well, is everything that I'm working for actually worth it, right? It took me 10 years or whatever it was, right? I lost everything in 2008. I picked all the pieces up. I did what I was supposed to do. I ended up buying a house. Now this global pandemic hits and I lost some friends and my health. I got COVID. I almost died, right? Like now you start questioning like, man, is this truly it? Why does it feel like everything that everybody told me of success, why does it feel like I still don't have it? Right. And when you start considering that, when you start thinking about the things that, especially on the millennial side, right? And even if you were a Gen Z, you probably experienced this at a way young age, which is going to affect you in a certain way when you're getting older, especially if you're living through this in your young adolescence. You're getting pumped with a lot of fear. You're getting pumped with a lot of what ifs, right? For a millennial, it's reaching this point right now. So in 2025, right, we just 5 years ago we went through the global pandemic, right? Took some time to pick up the pieces and recover from that and everything. At a time where you should truly be at the peak of your career, you're just feeling like it's not. You're feeling like, man, this is not what I wanted. This is not what I envisioned. And you're starting to realize it. It's almost like the door is cracked open in your mindset or in your personality because you're finally coming to you. You are finally realizing who it is you are, and the pieces, like that door is kind of creaking open a little bit more every time and kind of revealing your true self. Oh, sorry. Kind of revealing your true self, right? So with that, you're starting to see glimpses of who you would rather be and what you'd rather be doing than what you currently are right now. And I'm here to tell you guys, we're better for it, millennials. um, if you take action. Okay. If you take action. That's one of the biggest things that I can say is you got to take the time to reflect, because if you reflect, right, to gain realignment drives clarity. Okay. Then clarity will fuel your confidence. Then your confidence will drive aligned action for you to take. Okay. Towards where you want to be going. Okay. Because that's what you're trying to do, right? Is you're trying to figure out, where do I go from here? I feel stuck. I feel unfulfilled. I feel unaligned. What do I do next? And I'm telling you, that first step is you got to build awareness. You got to build that internal self perception of yourself, especially for millennials. You got to truly figure out who that teenager or young adult was supposed to be turning into during that time. Okay. And I know it's like I said, it's simple to say, it is not easy. Okay. Because let me tell you something, no job, no title, or no salary will bring you that joy. Okay. If you're not listening to that inner self in you. Okay. To figure out who it is you are now and who it is you are trying to become, right, for your future self. Okay. Believe me, I went through it. I wasted, and I wouldn't say, let me rephrase that. I wouldn't say wasted. I spent 7 years chasing a goal that was the old version of John. Okay. Through those 7 years, I was chasing the title, I was chasing the money, I was chasing the accolade of it, right? That's what I thought. I need to be at one of these high titles with this high paying job with this great company. That's going to be success. Once I get there, I'm going to feel all nice and fuzzy inside. I'm going to feel like I made it, right? And keep in mind, I kind of sidestepped social media for a little bit, right? So even with that, it still affected me, especially during my development years, right? In my early 20s. Okay. So once I went through that whole process and actually got there, right? I got the six-figure job. I got the great company. I got the leadership position that I wanted. It was like, like I didn't get that sense of feeling. I didn't get that sense of fulfillment where I was like, man, this is the job that I'm going to have forever. And I'm going to love this job and, you know, keep growing here. It did not feel like that at all. And once I did the work and I did the reflection, I figured out why. I figured out that I was chasing a goal that was a goal from the old version of John. And I hadn't stopped and paused enough to realize how I was changing over those years and figuring out what new John wanted. Okay. So I hope you got something out of this, especially for my millennials out there. Would love to know what you are, right? If you are a Gen Z or if you are a millennial, would love to know. Shoot in the comments or shoot the year that you were born and things like that. Hey, when Facebook came out, when you were born and stuff like that, how you interacted with it. I would love to get your feedback on that. As just how you interacted with social media at what age and how you felt that shifted your identity, how you felt like it's affecting you now, especially if you're feeling stuck or burnt out. um More than likely you are misaligned. Okay. I think we toss around the word burnout very often, but I think in some cases it's more misalignment rather than burnout, right? The job itself isn't toxic. I'm not saying there isn't. There's some that are definitely are, but perhaps the job itself isn't toxic. It's you that's toxic for that job. It's you that needs to move on, but it's your responsibility to take it upon yourself to reflect and figure that out. Okay. And leave that job the way it is because it might be the next stepping stone for somebody else. Okay. So, love to hear from you. If you got any comments, throw them on there. If you got any questions, you can always reach out to me. And yeah, see y'all on the next one. I will be live again next week, Wednesday. Thanks.